If I hear one more person say, "I'll just wing the behavioral section," I'm going to start assigning them homework. Technical prep is obvious. Grind problems, review systems design, know your stack. Behavioral is where people sabotage themselves by sounding like a LinkedIn post with a pulse.
Technical is at least measurable. Behavioral's where everyone starts saying, "I'm a team player," like it's a spell.
Exactly. The mistake is treating them like separate universes. They're not. Your technical answers need structure, and your behavioral answers need evidence. If you can't explain a bug you fixed without rambling for 4 minutes, that's not a behavioral issue, that's a communication issue.
Fair. I usually prep by picking a few real stories and making sure I can tell them without sounding like I'm reading my own performance review.
Good. Star, but not the robotic version. Situation, task, action, result. And if the result was ugly, say it was ugly. I'd rather hear, "I missed the deadline," than recovered by doing X and some polished fairy tale.
Yeah, honesty beats corporate bedtime stories. Though some interviewers do seem to want a saint, a wizard, and a firefighter in one person.
Then they can hire a myth. We're engineers, not folklore. Which is why behavioral prep should just be one part of the bigger drill. If your algorithm's answers are shaky, none of the great communicator stuff saves you. I'd rather see someone calmly reason through a 2-pointer problem than panic because they memorized 50 leak code titles.
True. This prep gets weirdly religious though. People act like if you haven't done 300 mediums, you're doomed.
That's nonsense. You need patterns, not a trophy count. Arrays, hash maps, stacks, queues, BFS, DFs, binary search, binary search, dynamic programming basics. Learn when each one fits. If you understand the trade-offs, you can improvise.
I do better by grouping problems. Same trick, different wrapper. Otherwise it turns into, guess the trick. And I get grumpy.
Then don't guess. Time yourself, review mistakes, and redo the ones you bombed until the solution feels obvious. If you can't explain why your approach is O(n) log n, you don't really know it.
Yeah. Also, writing out edge cases helps. Empty input, duplicates, weird limits. That's usually where I trip, not the main idea.
Exactly. Most interview failures aren't from not knowing enough, they're from sloppy practice. And once you stop being sloppy in algorithms, people suddenly remember system design exists. Which is funny, because half the candidates who can code circles around everyone still freeze the moment someone says, "Design a chat service."
Because there's no single right answer. That annoys people.
It should annoy them. System design isn't a trivia contest. The prep is about learning how to think out loud. Requirements first, then scale, then bottlenecks, then trade-offs. If you jump straight to databases, you sound like you're guessing.
I usually start by sketching the core flow. Read-write paths, what has to be real-time, what can be eventual. Keeps me from wandering off into fancy nonsense.
Good. And practice the basics. Catching, load balancing, sharding, rate limiting, queues, consistency. Not to recite definitions, but to know when each one helps and what it breaks.
The hardest part is staying concrete. Make it scalable. Is useless if you can't say what you're scaling.
Exactly. And if you haven't asked clarifying questions, you're already behind. A lot of weak answers are just people designing the wrong product with confidence. Which is why mock interviews matter more than another week of passive studying. You can read every article on system design and still sound unconvincing if you've never had to defend a bad idea out loud.
Yeah. Wow. Reality check is useful, unfortunately.
Mock interviews expose the exact things people avoid noticing. Filler words, weak transitions, missing trade-offs, the habit of apologizing before answering. and then you fix them with feedback, not vibes.
I prefer feedback from someone who will actually tell me when I'm being vague, not just, good job, keep it up.
Obviously. A useless mock is just socializing with stress. The point is to record the pattern, review it, then repeat until you stop making the same mistake. That loop is what improves you.
I did one last month where I rambled for 2 minutes before even answering the question. Painful, but helpful.
Exactly. Pain is educational. Better there than in front of a real panel while 3 people silently decide your fate. Friends are good for this too, as long as they're not too nice to be honest.
Mine are never too nice. One of them just stares until I admit I forgot the second half of the answer.
That's why I keep telling people to stop collecting isolated solutions and start learning patterns. If you know the framework, you can rebuild the answer under pressure instead of trying to remember some magical trick you saw at 1 a.m.
Patterns help. Sliding window, 2 pointers, monotonic stack, interval merging, graph traversal dived out. At least then the problem looks less like a trap.
Exactly. When I'm preparing, I ask, what's the input shape? What's changing? What constraint is the real clue? That tells you whether you're dealing with a prefix sum problem or something recursive or greedy.
Greedy is still the one that gets people arguing in the comments.
Because half of them are pretending. If you can explain why a local choice is safe, fine. If not, it's just wishful thinking with a fast runtime.
My framework is usually restate, brute force, optimize, test edge cases. Keeps me from doing something clever and regrettable.
Good. Interviewers love seeing the path from naive to polished. It shows you can reason, not just arrive fully formed like some algorithmic wizard from the mountain. And that's where whiteboarding comes in. People panic because they think the board is for the final answer. It's not. It's for showing your thinking before you trip over it.
Whiteboards are rude. They make every mistake bigger.
Good. Then they reveal the mistake early. That's the point. You need to talk while you write. Assumptions, approach, complexity, trade-offs. If you go silent for 30 seconds, the interviewer starts wondering whether your brain left the building.
I usually narrate the shape of the solution first, then fill in the details. Otherwise, I end up staring at the marker like it betrayed me.
Perfect. And keep it structured. I'll start with a brute force solution, then improve it. Is much better than wandering into code and hoping the interviewer can excavate your intent.
Some people write like they're composing a ransom note. Mine gets messy when I'm stressed.
Then, slow down. Clean diagrams, readable variable names, and short checkpoints matter more than raw speed. If you can explain your logic while drawing it, you're already ahead of the people muttering to themselves like haunted printers.